I never imagined I would find myself questioning the foundation of a relationship I once believed to be unshakable. When we first met, it felt like stepping into a dream. Even now, I can vividly recall the details of that magical day. The afternoon sun streamed through the skylights of the shopping mall, casting a warm glow over bustling shoppers. I was aimlessly browsing through shelves of items I didn't even plan to buy, more out of habit than necessity. And then he appeared, as if conjured by fate itself. He wasn't the kind of man who blended into the background. No, he stood out in the most extraordinary way. His posture exuded quiet confidence, and his smile was one of those rare expressions that could melt the hardest hearts. It wasn't just a smile, it was an invitation, a promise of something unforgettable. When our eyes met, it felt as though the world itself paused. The noise of the mall faded into a soft hum, and for a brief moment, it was just the two of us in a sea of strangers. He approached me, his voice warm and easy as he commented on the book I was absent-mindedly holding. "You've got good taste," he said, nodding at the cover. I froze, startled by his directness yet charmed by his ease. I can't even remember what I said in response, probably something clumsy or generic, but whatever it was, it made him laugh. Not just a polite chuckle, but a genuine, heartwarming laugh that lit up his entire face. That moment marked the beginning of something that felt larger than life. From the very first conversation, we connected like old friends who had been apart for far too long. He wasn't just charming, he was magnetic. He noticed the little things that most people overlooked, the way I nervously tucked my hair behind my ear, or how my face lit up when I talked about things I was passionate about. It was more than just attention, it was understanding. He made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt before, like I was the only person that mattered. Even in a crowded mall, as we spent more time together, I discovered that he was everything I had ever hoped for in a partner: caring, supportive, and endlessly encouraging. He became my safe haven in an often chaotic world. For instance, after particularly stressful days at work, he would show up with my favorite snacks, dark chocolate and salted caramel cookies, without me ever having to ask. When I struggled with a late-night project, he stayed up, keeping me company even when I insisted he didn't have to. He had this incredible ability to sense exactly what I needed, whether it was space, comfort, or simply someone to listen. He didn't just tell me I was beautiful, he made me feel it, even on days when I couldn't bear to look at myself in the mirror. His love wasn't superficial, it was rooted in who I was as a person, quirks and flaws included. He celebrated my victories, no matter how small, and believed in my dreams even when I doubted them myself. Over 2 years, we built a relationship that felt like it could withstand anything. We became inseparable, not just lovers, but true partners. He wasn't just my boyfriend, he was my confidant, my cheerleader, my best friend. Together, we dreamed of a future so vivid it felt tangible. We would spend hours talking about our dream wedding, the flowers, the music, the guest list, and imagine the cozy home we'd create, filled with love and laughter. We even discussed children, playfully debating names and imagining their little personalities. Those conversations weren't just whimsical daydreams, they felt like promises, solid and unbreakable. But then, as often happens in life, reality began to test the fairy tale. Lately, there's been a shift, a subtle yet undeniable change. It's like a faint crack in a perfect mirror, almost invisible but impossible to ignore once noticed. One quiet evening, we were sitting together in his room, wrapped in the warmth of yet another deep conversation about our future. And then, out of nowhere, he said something that shattered the illusion. "If we're going to get married, you'll have to prove to me that you can have children," he said casually, as if he were commenting on the weather. First, I laughed, thinking it was a poorly timed joke. But when I looked into his eyes, there was no trace of humor. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to mask the rising lump in my throat. "I just want to make sure," he replied, his tone calm and almost clinical. "I don't want any surprises after we're married. You should get pregnant first, and then we can plan the wedding." His words landed like a physical blow. I felt the air leave my lungs as a wave of disbelief, Hurt and anger swept over me. How could he reduce me to a test that needed to be passed? Was that all I was to him? Someone who needed to prove her worth by fulfilling a condition? I sat there, stunned, as the weight of his statement sank in. The man who had once made me feel like the most cherished person in the world now felt like a stranger. Since that moment, I've been grappling with questions that keep me awake at night. How do you reconcile the person you thought you knew with the one sitting across from you now? How do you move forward when the foundation of your relationship begins to feel like sand slipping through your fingers? This isn't the future I envisioned. And now, I'm left to wonder, was it all too good to be true? Or am I holding on to a dream that no longer exists? I attempted to reason with him, my voice filled with frustration. We've talked about this before, I said, trying to keep calm. Marriage first, then kids. Why change everything now? He simply shrugged, his gaze unwavering, his expression unshaken. I just want to be sure. It's not about you. I just think it's practical. His words felt like a slap to my face. Practical? Was love supposed to be practical? Was this how things were supposed to be? For 3 years, I believed that we were building a life together, one rooted in trust, mutual respect, and faith in each other. But now, it felt as though I was no longer seen as a partner, but rather as a condition he needed to fulfill before he could take the next step. That night, I tossed and turned in bed, unable to find rest. His words echoed in my mind, each repetition digging deeper into my heart. Part of me wanted to understand, maybe he had his reasons, fears he hadn't yet shared. Maybe he was afraid of the unknown, just like everyone else. But another part of me was consumed with hurt and confusion. Why couldn't he trust me? Why couldn't he trust us? I thought about the sacrifices I had made for this relationship, the late-night conversations, the compromises, the patience, the support I'd given him through every storm. I had stood by him during his highs and lows, believing that we were building something unshakable. And now, after all that, he was asking for proof, as though the years we'd spent together weren't enough to show him that I was all in. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself in the midst of a silent battle. Should I give in to his demand and prove my love and commitment? Should I do whatever it takes to make him feel secure in our relationship? Or should I stand my ground, demand the respect I deserve, and protect my self-worth? Was this even about love anymore? Or had it turned into something else entirely, something transactional, something fragile? Finally, when I confronted him again, hoping he might have changed his mind, his stance remained firm. "It's not that I don't trust you," he said, his voice steady. "I just want to be sure. Don't you want to know too? What if something's wrong and we only find out after we're married?" His words stung not because of what he said, but because of what they implied. It felt as though our future together hinged not on the love and trust we had built, but on my ability to meet his expectations. He wasn't questioning us. He was questioning me, my commitment, my ability to fulfill some intangible condition he had set. And in that moment, I realized something unsettling. I was no longer just his partner. I was a test he needed to pass. I've always believed that love is about trust, taking risks together, supporting each other through the unknown, and believing in the bond that unites two people. But now, his ultimatum was shaking that belief to its very foundation. As I sat alone, contemplating our future, I couldn't help but wonder, is this the kind of love I want? Is this the man I thought I was meant to spend my life with? Or had I been blind to the cracks in the foundation? Cracks that had always been there but only now revealed themselves? Sometimes, the hardest decisions we face are the ones that force us to confront the truth about what we deserve. And in this moment, I'm beginning to realize that maybe, just maybe, I deserve more than someone who needs proof to believe in me, someone who can't trust that our love is enough. The more I think about his demand, the more my mind spirals with questions and doubts. What if I agree to his terms and give him the proof he wants, only for him to leave me anyway? What if, in his quest for certainty, he decides he isn't ready for marriage after all, leaving me to raise a child alone, with no partner by my side? The thought of facing the world alone, of raising a child without the support of the man I thought I could trust, terrifies me to my core. How would I explain such a situation to my family? What would my parents think? They have always taught me the importance of commitment, of doing things the right way, of believing in the sanctity of marriage. Disappointing them feels like betraying everything they have instilled in me. And then there's the lingering question that haunts me, day and night. Does he truly love me? If he did, wouldn't he marry me without all these conditions? Wouldn't he trust that we could face whatever challenges life threw our way, together? I've always believed that love means accepting someone wholeheartedly, with no ifs or buts. So why does it feel like I'm being tested? Like I'm on trial for my future? Why does it feel like I have to prove myself over and over again, just to be seen as worthy of his trust and commitment? I've asked him directly, in the most vulnerable way, if he doubts me or if he thinks I'm incapable of having children. His response is always the same. It's not about that, he insists. I just want to be sure. It's for both of us, not just me. But his words, rather than offering reassurance, only deepen my discomfort. It's not just about proving something to him, it's about the principle of it. Why does it feel like my love, my loyalty, and everything I've given to this relationship isn't enough? Why do I have to prove something so intimate and personal? Something as profound as the future of our family? I love him. I truly do. But my heart is heavy with the weight of fear. The fear of making a decision that could change the course of my life forever. I've seen what happens to women who are left to raise children alone, who are forced to balance the demands of parenthood while facing judgment from society. I don't want to become a cautionary tale, but the reality of that possibility keeps creeping into my thoughts. And yet, I find myself torn. Part of me wants to hold on to the relationship we've built, to the dreams we've shared. But another part of me wonders if this is a red flag I cannot afford to ignore. If he can't trust me now, will he ever? If he can't commit to me without conditions, what other hurdles will I have to jump through in the future? Here I am, searching for answers, pouring my heart out to anyone who will listen, hoping for some clarity, some wisdom, or perhaps a new perspective. The questions seem endless, and the weight of them feels unbearable. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you agree to his demand, risking your future and your self-respect for the chance at a life together? Or would you walk away, knowing deep down that you deserve a love that doesn't come with conditions? Sometimes, when the doubt becomes too much to bear, I close my eyes and wish I could turn back time, to the days when everything felt simple and secure, when love was pure and uncomplicated, when trust was enough to build a future on. But life has a way of throwing challenges at us when we least expect them, and this one feels like it could break me. The doubt lingers, growing louder with each passing day. It's impossible to ignore, no matter how much I wish I could. After countless sleepless nights and endless soul-searching, I finally made a decision that wasn't just about the present, but about the future, one that was anchored in love, trust, and the desire to build something meaningful together. I told myself it was about more than just a relationship. It was about the life we wanted to create, a future I was willing to fight for. No matter the uncertainties that lay ahead, we came to an agreement. After much deliberation and difficult conversations, it wasn't an easy choice, but we knew it was one we had to make together. After weeks of wrestling with doubts and fears, we finally booked a hotel room, a quiet, private space where we could confront the reality of what was to come. It wasn't just a room to us, it felt like a turning point, a symbolic place where our future would begin to take shape. The air felt thick with significance as we entered the room. It was simple, unassuming, yet it held so much weight. The soft, ambient light bathed the space in a warm glow, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch and pull at the edges of time itself. I could feel the storm of emotions inside me: love, fear, nervousness, and hope all swirling together, making my chest tighten and my heart race. At the forefront, there was love, the kind of love that had seen us through 2 years of shared dreams, laughter, and tears. A love that had been tested, yet still stood firm. But with love, there was also the undeniable presence of doubt, like a shadow that crept in, whispering questions into my mind. Is this the right choice? Are we ready for this? As I turned to look at him, I saw a mixture of determination and vulnerability in his eyes. He stood there, unsure of what the next step would bring, yet resolute in the choice we had made. In that instant, the world around us seemed to disappear, and all that mattered was him, the man who had once made me feel like I was the center of his universe, the man I had loved deeply, even when flaws and uncertainties had surfaced between us. When he reached out for my hand, I felt a jolt of reassurance. His touch was familiar, warm, and steady, a grounding force amid the emotional whirlwind. It was a silent reminder of the times he had been my rock, my safe space. The comfort of his presence made me believe, if only for a moment, that our love was strong enough to weather any storm, that we could face the future together. We sat together, our voices barely above a whisper. As we spoke about the future, there was a sense of hope in his words, a conviction that stirred something deep within me. He spoke of building a life together, creating a family that would bring us joy. His promises were filled with sincerity, but they also carried the weight of responsibility, and I couldn't help but feel both hope and fear mixing in my heart. The love between us felt almost tangible, wrapping around us like a protective shield, keeping the outside world at bay. But beneath that warmth, there was an undeniable awareness of the decision we were making, a choice that could either bring us closer or drive us apart. There was no turning back from what was unfolding in that room, with only the sound of our breathing filling the space, the ticking of the clock marking the passage of time. I made a choice. Despite the doubts and the fear, I chose to trust him. I chose to believe in the man I had loved for years, the man who had shown me that love could be messy, complicated, yet still beautiful. I hoped that this decision would lead us to the future we both dreamed of. That night, as we held each other, it felt like we had crossed an invisible line, one with no return. What had been set in motion could not be undone. And in the quiet of that room, as I looked into his eyes, I silently prayed that I had made the right choice, that this path would lead us to where we both needed to be. Weeks later, my life changed forever. I discovered I was pregnant. The moment I saw the positive test, I couldn't hold back the tears. It wasn't just the fear or the joy, but the overwhelming realization that life was moving forward in ways I hadn't expected. I felt a deep sense of gratitude, and yet, a fresh wave of uncertainty washed over me. What would the future hold for us now? When I shared the news with him, his reaction was everything I had hoped for. He hugged me tightly, holding me as if he knew the weight of this moment, and promised that he was ready for whatever came next. True to his word, we got married in a small, intimate ceremony. It wasn't the grand celebration we had once imagined, but it was perfect in its own way, filled with love and the promise of new beginnings. The struggles of the past seemed distant now, fading into the background as we welcomed not one, but two blessings into our lives, twins. The moment I held my babies for the first time, something shifted within me. A new kind of love, deeper and more profound, filled my heart. Every doubt, every fear I had felt, suddenly seemed worth it. My husband stood beside me, his eyes filled with pride and joy as he gazed at our children. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt at peace. All the struggles, the sleepless nights, the doubts, they were all part of a journey that had brought us here. Even now, as I reflect on the path that led me to this moment, I can't help but wonder, was it the right path? Did I make the right choices along the way? Only time will tell, and maybe I will never have all the answers. But one thing I do know for certain is this: I have learned to trust myself, to listen to my heart, even when the answers aren't easy to find. And in the end, that is what has made all the difference. Thank you for taking the time to watch our videos. If you find the content useful and interesting, don't forget to like, share, and especially subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos. Our channel will always update attractive, inspiring, and useful content for you. Click the bell icon to receive notifications as soon as there are new videos. Your support is the biggest motivation for us to continue to develop. Thank you and see you in the next videos.